player too.
Cool.
Questions?
With both your punter and kicker back, I mean, what's your main emphasis, goal, and what do you want to see from those two guys this spring?
We're working on getting better. They were okay last year, and there's improvements to be made. I think they're both making strides in that area, specifically with Brian. We're working on field punts. So, I thought he did a nice job last year. If you look at us statistically, this proves out too. Going in the what we call the pooch punts, the pooch area, the directional stuff. We're working on it, but I thought he did a pretty good job with that last year. So, we're doing a lot of work. It's awesome to have our practice facility because we can kick with the wind, against the wind, and now we have that other field where we're kicking with crosswinds. So, that's always a factor with the winds in Nebraska. We've been getting them this spring. We got them all last year, so that's a factor in the big ball kicks for Brian. It's also a factor in the kicking part of it. So Tristan, is working on that as well. Tristan coming out of the season at 60%, that's not good enough for us to win more than 5 games probably. So we have to get that percentage up significantly. And he has shown that so far. He's having a good spring for us. And, he's made some improvements in his technique and he's stronger. So we're making improvements, but the theme is for both of those guys is to get better. We're also working with a new snapper. So, Camden Witucky's been snapping as a new snapper, and they they're getting used to him, not used to him, but they're just getting into the rhythm of working together.
How's that with Tucky? How's that picture look? I mean, you guys have not had any trouble in that area at all, right?
Why? Why you got to say that? You're like my son. He's like, it's like a jinx. Yeah. Well, that's. There's been Marco set the trend last year, and Marco was a consummate pro. We were really fortunate to get him, and he's done really well out in the circuit and got himself invited to different combines, and a lot of NFL teams are looking at him right now. So for Camden to be able to work with him last year was really critical, and got a really not just a sense of how to snap the football, but also how to perfect your craft. I mean, Marco was working all the time. You guys understand, they're trying not just to get the ball to the holder. They're trying to get the ball to the holder so the holder can just take it and put it down and doesn't have to move the laces at all. So, I think Marco is as good a short snapper as I've worked with, and he was great with that. And he was meticulous about the details. And for Camden to see that was really cool. So, he had a good year experience behind Marco, and now he's got to step up and do it.
Replicate that level of consistency?
It's just we were talking about this today. We were talking about this today with Camden, where to try to get that level of consistency where the laces are perfect, and perfection is perfection. We're always striving for it, but we don't always get it. So sometimes, Amy, we're looking at 85 or 90% when it's all said and done, but you just got to go and rep. So today we were talking about. He's like, Coach, I shot that thing back the same way, and it was a half turn, meaning I had to Brian had to turn the ball, and then the next time it was perfect. So he has to have a feel for the velocity of the snap and counting the rotations of the ball coming back. It's that amount of detail. So he just has to he's working with making sure that velocity and how the ball feels coming out of his hand, is the same every time. He again, because he's worked under Marco, because he's that kind of kid, he said to me, in the last practice, he had put a couple of snaps inside and said, Coach, look at my feet. And, one of his feet was staggered. And it was I had to look at it real close, but it was 2 inches. But it's like a golf swing. It's the same thing over and over and over again with the perfect technique, the perfect hand motion, the feet placed the right way. And again, we're not just talking about snapping it so that he can catch it like Charlie Brown and Lucy, it's like when they used to catch it, or it's like that ball's got to be there and just put right down to give us the best chance to get it through.
What kind of growth have you seen from Tristan 1 year in? Now is there more consistency in the routine that he goes through every time he kicks the ball?
Yeah, there's a lot more. And it's a lot more things that we were able to work on together, coming through. And the resources here are great. So, we can send film, or I could talk to guys like Chris Brown or Brett Maher or Alex Henry. These are all guys that I have, I could talk to on a regular basis to kind of look at things and see if it's like a sounding board. And I've gotten to the point now, and this didn't happen to the degree that I wanted it to during the season, to be perfectly honest with you, where I know how he's lining up and exactly, what it looks like. Because, even though I worked with him last summer a little bit, as we got into the season, there were a number of things that we were working on technically, and it's like, he's 18 years old, so it's like, do you want to go in there and make wholesale changes to what he's done? And so I was really trying to, to look at what we were doing and simplify it for him. But now we're way better on the same page in terms of exactly, and it's really regards to the setup on the ball and on how he's lining up, he's grown. In just us growing together and him being able to get that approach down is way more consistent and I think way better. And he's stronger. So he's been, another year or another 6 months in our weight program. So his core strength is better. He's got a strong leg, as you guys know, but he's hitting it, he's hitting it with a lot of confidence right now.
Since he came in here with so much hype and praise and all that, I mean, did you find yourself, since he was just a freshman, having to boost his confidence all while still coaching him, saying, hey, it's going to be all right, you're young, you're going to make mistakes?
Yeah, and that's how coaching is now in this day and age, really, with just about everybody. But in a situation where you're starting a freshman, it's especially evident. But there's a fine line between pushing and backing off and and encouraging and getting them to stay focused. So that's the hardest part about coaching. And then you got the guys in your room, whether I was coaching the tight ends or the O-line or now special teams, they all have kind of different approaches and different buttons to push or different ways to motivate them to get them to perform. So most of it was with Tristan and with the guys nowadays, there's not a lot of pushing them to become more intense. It's really the other part of it. They're so obsessive at times with their craft that and everything that they do is out in front of the whole world now. It's not like when we played, it was like you could make a mistake and nobody cared or nobody knew. Now it's like they put so much pressure with this social media identity that they have, that they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. I can't even imagine, if you think about Tristan, right? So he's 18 years old. He's been coming to the stadium since he's been 5 years old with his grandfather, and he goes through his whole life. He's watching from the stands for 15 years, and now all of a sudden, he goes into what's the 13th grade, and he's now on the field kicking. Can you guys even imagine what that would be like? I mean, it's like you put yourself in those shoes, and it's like, wow, yeah. But he's really good. Tristan's really good with, he's intense. He's locked in, he's focused, and he can miss one, and then he can flush it, and he can take a breath, and he can get himself back to that square one. And he rarely misses two in a row. If he misses one, he's fixing it, and it's on to the next one. He's really, for a young kid, he's got, really good maturity that way.
With the NFL kind of changing their kickoff approach, I mean, do you foresee that being in college soon, or
That was us last spring. Did you see on spring that? We were on the cutting edge of that. I don't know I don't have any idea what the college game will do, but it's not surprising to me that that the NFL is trying. I applaud the NFL for trying something different, because I know that there's an element of the NFL. There's an element of anything that is successful where it's like, do you really want to change it? So, I don't know what the data is in terms of the true amounts of injuries at the college game as opposed to the NFL. I know when I was a special teams coach in the NFL, they were looking at the punt play for soft tissue injuries, and the data had come back to us, and we had gotten in the room as special teams coaches and said, we want an answer for soft tissue injuries on the punt play. And we all sat down, it was about 40 of us on a Zoom call talking about the ways that the injury. We watched all the plays where guys got injured. I don't know what the data is right now at the college level on that particular play, but I would, I think that there's always, whenever you're looking at things to do, make changes in the game for safety's sake, why not try it? I mean, it's worth it to try to see how you can make the game safer. So I could see it happening, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't either.
Did you connect with Cam Jurgens and talk about the Eagles?
Of course. After I almost ran him over in the cart today, out there, we drive a golf cart around because we have 3 fields going. So wherever the kicks need to go, I'm zipping around in the cart, and we were talking about. We're absolutely talking about the Eagles for sure. We're talking about Jason Kelsey, how he came out of WrestleMania 72 out there and had the mask on, and him and Lane Johnson came out in Philadelphia for WrestleMania and wrestled their way to stardom.
There's a lot of early enrollees on this team. Have you found an eagerness with some of those guys even popping their head in your office wanting to be a part of things?
Yeah, there are, and there's some that aren't. So like, and the ones that do are a little bit ahead, but the team there's so much leadership and maturity with regards to special teams on our team that the new enrollees are, even if they're really good and they're coming in, and a lot of them are like a lot of those young defensive players, they're coming in like I tell them, I say, guys, if you come into my office and we talk special teams, I tell them 5 minutes, and sometimes it's 5 or 6, but I'm not going to give them a lecture on life. I'm going to come in and say, here's your reps, here's what you did in practice today, and here's what you can do better. And I say, that's 5 minutes, that's it, because I don't want them to be like, thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go into Coach Foley's office and he's gonna give me a lecture or he's gonna beat me down. I'm not. I'm just saying, here's what we need to do, and pay attention in the meetings. And the older guys are so helpful. Like, there's so many veteran players that are helping with all that now. And all they have to do, like, I literally tell them, I'm like, just watch the guy in front of you, like. Isaac Gifford's going to go up there and he's going to do it just about perfectly. And if you watch him do it, then you can learn from that. So, and then Isaac's coaching him to do it. So, but yeah, there's some really talented players there that are going to really help us on special teams, and it's my job to just get them progressed along in the spring as much as possible.
Yeah, working at punt return.
Ethan Nation's working at punt returner. Isaiah Garcia Castaneda is a guy that's doing it, but he's limited in terms of his injuries. So Ethan's taking some reps back there. There's some other young player. Beyond him, like, because he's done it a little bit on the field for us, and he's working. Like, he came out. We would have the jugs out there right after the signing date, and he'd go out there and catch 30 or 40 a day. And the issue here the issue anywhere, but like especially here, is like tracking the ball. We have a bunch of guys that can catch a punt. It's the actual watching the ball, and with the wind conditions, and then we go from jugs to Jacob Hole's doing some punting for us, so they go from Brian to Jacob to the jugs, and then you got, like I said, if you're on the turf field, you got a crosswind. If you're on the grass field, you got the wind either in your face or at your back. So all those things are the guys are making really good progress with that. Other guys other than those two are making progress with it, but. That'll be. We got to build. My job is to build. We got to get 4 or 5 guys that can do that. As we ran into that a little bit last year, where we had some injury issues with that, and it was. But we need a major improvement in that area.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.